Welcome to the TransformationCoach.me podcast. I'm your host, Adam Shively, and I'm on a 1 million pound mission. I've personally lost over 100 pounds, and I've applied what I've learned from my own transformation journey to help my hometown clients lose over 35,000 pounds in just 5 years. Now, I'm on a mission to produce over 1 million pounds of results by delivering weekly tips, motivation, and my best transformation strategies to my podcast listeners, blog readers, and everybody I interact with through social media and my online coaching programs. The perfect time to start your transformation is now. So let's do this. All right, my friends, we are back for another episode of the TransformationCoach.me podcast. It's your buddy Adam. I am so thrilled to have you here today. Thank you guys for tuning in. I've got a great one for you here today. Today, I've got an interview with my good friend, Bree Argetsinger, a.k.a. The Betty Rocker. Now, the Betty Rocker, as she is now known, is an internationally known holistic health and fitness coach, innovative entrepreneur, and motivator of self-growth. She's the host of the world-famous 30-day #MakeFatCry home workout challenge and provides actionable health and fitness guidance via her blog, online courses, and social media channels that reach millions. Now, Bree and I dive into a bunch of questions that you guys sent to me via social media and the blog on the website. So some of the things that we talk about, we get her recommendations for people that tend to give into cravings. We also dive pretty deep on males versus females and how they should be training their bodies. And she also gives some advice to females that are kind of getting frustrated because they aren't losing weight as fast as their husbands do. Then we also talk about her own journey and how she transformed from Bree into the Betty Rocker, that she is now that internationally known super fitness hero. And then we also, at the end, we finish up with a little bit of advice that she would give anybody out there that seems to be in a fitness rut or just that life rut where you need a little bit of mojo, a little bit of help, a little bit of support to boost you up out of that and start building momentum. So without further ado, we're going to dive right in with Bree Argetsinger, a.k.a. The Betty Rocker. All right, my friends, welcome to another episode of the TransformationCoach.me podcast. I am so excited today. You are going to love this one. I have got the Betty Rocker, a.k.a. Bree Argetsinger, and she is coming to rock the house with some great knowledge. We are going to do some quick fire questions, and then we're going to dive deep towards the end. But Bree, first off, welcome to the TransformationCoach.me podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I did some prep for our interview, and I asked my audience on social media and through my blog to send in some questions that they had for you specifically. And we're going to dive into those just in 1 second here. But first, I wanted to kind of give you the opportunity to talk about the name, the Betty Rocker, how that came to be and what the significance of that is. So let's start there.
Okay, yeah, for sure. That's such a great question because it is kind of a funny name, right? Like Betty Rocker. What is that? So from when I was growing up, I was always like a super like tomboy, outdoorsy kid. And I loved riding dirt bikes and mountain bikes. And when I got a little older, I started riding street bikes. And I was always like, just like a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. I got tattoos. And the funny thing about that was I was always like really into baking and cooking. And of course I didn't evolve into being a super healthy baker until, in my early 30s. But, what was funny is I think that sort of like juxtaposition of like healthy baker, nurturing, wants to feed her friends, plus adrenaline junkie. People were always calling me punk rock Betty Crocker, which is like so funny. And so that kind of morphed into Betty Rocker. But what was so cool is as I started the brand and started to understand the significance of it, it was almost like I grew into the name, and the name took on a really special significance, which was that, well, you know, the word Betty, like in Australia, it means like a cool chick. It's like she's a cool chick, right? So that's a Betty. Like anybody could be a Betty.
Nice.
And rocker for me was not about rock and roll, although I love rock and roll. It was really about like rocking at life, like rocking your life and rocking your body and, you know, your mind and everything about life. And so I felt like Betty Rocker was the name that I was giving to all of the people who followed me. They were all Betty Rockers because they were, you know, I had primarily speak to women and speak to the men through these women and their kids as well, but they're all Betty Rockers. And I may be the Betty Rocker now, but everybody's a Betty Rocker who, you know, is part of my tribe. So that's the name in essence.
That's awesome. And it makes so much sense. Just, you know, recently getting a chance to meet you and talk to you in person, all of that comes through within the first like 5 seconds of meeting you. All that energy, and you're grabbing me, and you're sharing ideas, and we're talking and brainstorming. So I think that makes so much more sense now that you broke it down for me. That was the first thing that I thought, like, Betty Rocker, that's really cool. What's that all about? So I'm glad that you shed some light on that. Cool.
Yeah,
now,
and it's so awesome. It was so awesome meeting you in person. You are such a genuine, caring person, and you have such a big heart, and that just shines through. And I'm sure your audience knows that from listening to your podcast. But I couldn't believe, like, you are a giant of a man.
well, I appreciate all those niceties that you just tossed my direction. And yeah, I used to be more giant back in the day, but you know, I told you my story of losing 100 pounds. I've talked about it on the podcast. So I think I need to send you a couple pictures of the even more giant Adam because it'll rock Betty Rocker's world a little bit, I think, just to see those.
Right. But it's really amazing, like how, you know, your journey, maybe you were giant, like physically the way you described, but now like you've taken that largesse, if we may say so, and turned it into like your big heart, and you now like you've put that out into the world to serve others. I love it. We have a lot of alignment.
Oh yeah, I can definitely tell that. That's for sure. All right, so what I wanted to do is I got a ton of questions. Like you have just the Betty Rockers out there are rabid. I mean, they started blasting me. They started sending all these questions. I'm like, if I was doing a 6-hour podcast, we'd be good to go. So I wanted to just do a few kind of rapid fire questions first that I thought were super interesting. We can dive into those, and then we've got a few deeper ones that I wanted to finish with. And that way we end with a lot of momentum, and we'll leave people inspired, like I know that you like to do. Sound good?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. So the first one up, a little rapid fire question is, what are your favorite food recommendations for people that want to eat healthy but love the sweets? I'm sure you deal with this all the time. I know I do. And I know that you rock the recipes in the kitchen probably way, way, way better than I do. So I'm listening in as well. I'm taking good notes, Bree. So what do you got?
All right. I'm proud of you. Right on. So I think this is like a common issue for a lot of people, and I've got two things to say about it. First off, you know, I think like let's talk about cravings. Cravings for sweet, they come from a couple different places, right? If you're constantly craving sweet, you know, it may be that you don't have your foundation set up yet, right? You may not be eating the right balance of carbohydrates, complex carbs, things like, you know, soaked, sprouted, or fermented grains. If you eat grains, sweet potatoes, starchy vegetables, healthy protein, and healthy fat. So very important, and greens, of course, for your micronutrients. So if you're finding you're constantly like craving sugar or craving sweets, it's important that you make sure that you check in on your nutrition balance. But there are other reasons we get cravings, and sometimes we have an association with sugar and a particular activity, right? Like maybe it's sitting down in front of the TV at night and we just like kind of trained ourselves to like eat something sweet at that time. And maybe it's just an emotional need. There's another association that happens like when we're feeling sad or when we're feeling bored or we're feeling something. We've trained ourselves in this emotional state to give ourselves that little boost of energy with something sweet. So we just want to be mindful of that. And that's why I really teach mindful eating, because I've developed this concept around sweets because I love to be able to eat all things in balance. I don't think you should avoid anything if you want it. I think that there's a time and place for like treats, for desserts. So I came up with this concept called NSA, which stands for no strings attached. And that is when you get to, like, when you are, like, at a friend's birthday party, you better eat that cake, you know, and not feel guilty about it. You want to mindfully enjoy that moment. That's a special moment, you know, like drinks on the weekends with your friends, or drinks, it doesn't have to be the weekend. You know, just being mindful about your choices and enjoying them purposefully, it's really a big part of mindful living and mindful eating. So I just think that mindlessly eating, like if you're just eating sugar because you're sad, and you don't realize that's what you're doing, that's dangerous, right? Because then you just reinforce the association that you have. But this NSA thing kind of suspends your self-judgment for being able to eat these yummy things. And I feel like a lot of people have a lot of guilt when they eat that way. And that causes stress. And we want to not do that to ourselves. Exactly. So the NSA approach is one that I really have embraced, and I recommend that you actively feel free to give yourself an NSA treat or an NSA drink or whatever drinks, or maybe it's an NSA day, and to work that into your week and to have it as something that you can look forward to and not feel guilt or shame about. But if you are just wanting to have dessert, why not make a healthy dessert? I've got a ton of great healthy dessert recipes on my blog that are all made with whole foods and are lower in the glycemic index than something you might buy in the store. I've even got nice cream. I mean, come on, like frozen bananas and cacao powder. What?
Nice.
Yeah, that's my kind of long answer to like people who want to be healthy and love sweets, because I think there are a couple things going on there.
I think you had us all at nice cream there, Bree. So that's we'll definitely link to that one in the blog. So everybody can look forward to that. And you guys that are listening in, I'm going to put links to everything she talks about in the blog and in the show notes. So you don't have to, you can just enjoy the podcast, listen in, and I'll take care of the notes for you. Now, Bree, I love what you said about the NSA, the no strings attached, and the mindful versus mindless eating. I know a lot of people deal with that. Just another example, in my last podcast that I put out, I talked to a lady that really talked about going from the emotional thinking to the rational thinking. And in her situation, she was 38 weeks pregnant with her fifth child, and she found out that she had breast cancer at that time. So it was this huge emotional thing. And we talked about how she went from that emotional thinking into rational thinking and started attacking and battling cancer with clean eating and fitness and all. It's really, really cool. So I feel like that's, you can go to that extreme example, or we can bring it home to what we mainly deal with people that have a bad day at work and go through the drive-through and have that mindless eating moment. So,
well, and like you just brought up another point that's so important to touch on. Is that people, we're abusing ourselves when we don't feel good instead of nourishing ourselves. And you've got like this amazing body it's like a factory inside of your body, and all of these little workers that are all of your cells and organs, and they're doing all this work for you. They're 100% dedicated to the purpose of you and your life every day, every single moment, like millions of cells. And they're like, and when you are stressed out or you're sad or you're frustrated, those cells are still trying to serve you and support you. And so why like pummel them with excess work and crap in your system when what they really need is your support so that they can continue to serve you and help you and nourish you. And like, that's really how I learned how to love my body. It's when I kind of like recognized that this organism that I live in, this vessel of awesomeness, like I like to call my body, is literally dedicated to like serving me every day. And so like, I don't want to punish it when I'm upset, but by eating a bunch of stuff that I know what it does to me, and know that it makes me feel sick afterwards. I know that it makes me feel tired. If I drink too much, I get hungover. It messes with my hormones, all these things. And that's because the factory workers, they can handle that, a couple times a week. Like, they're strong. So, enjoy those NSA times. But when you do it constantly, they're just overworked. Imagine, you have a company and you overwork your employees. You make them work, 24-hour shifts, like 5 days a week. They're going to quit on you, or they're going to not perform at their best. And that's exactly what happens to your body.
Yeah. And so since you brought up your vessel of awesomeness, which I'm going to steal that terminology. I love it.
Help yourself.
I wanted to ask.
Everyone should think about it that way.
Exactly. So do you think that women and men should train their bodies differently? This was another question that popped up, but I felt like this is a good place to talk about it in our conversation here.
I don't see it as a gender difference. I feel like personal goals are personal goals, and we all have different goals. And I wouldn't even really compare it as like men and women. I think, it's really like just where you're at in your life and what your personal goals are. And that's personal to each one of us. Sorry, did you hear my timer just go off? That's because I'm baking bread.
There you go.
I am baking bread at my house. I'm baking this amazing buckwheat loaf. Buckwheat
Nice.
is actually a seed that is like gluten-free, totally. It's a seed. So I'm just doing an experiment in my kitchen. So I beg your pardon for the interruption, but I thought you guys would like the reason.
That's awesome.
Okay, so here's the thing. Everybody, men, women, you can do every exercise there is. There's no difference. But I would imagine that there are going to be slight differences in people's training styles and in what their personal goals are. So, like, I wouldn't imagine that you would probably spend a ton of time doing ballet bar classes to sculpt your butt.
You never know.
You might. You never know. And that, I don't know. I just would imagine that, like, each of us has his personal goal, and we're going to utilize the tools available to us. And, saying that about you not doing ballet bars, just because I just met you and I know that that's probably not your personal goal right now. And it very well could be that, like, down the road, that would be something like a great low impact type of training that would be really, really awesome for you. And that's the thing. All of the different training styles are available to all of us at any time. And depending on your personal goals, you should do what makes you happy and is fun for you and helps you reach them. And when it comes to training isn't just about exercise. It's also about sleep. It's about nutrition. And, again, those things vary depending on you, your age, your personal goals. Although I would argue that everyone needs a good amount of sleep every night. I would say that nutrition, we all need the spectrum of healthy nutrients, although all of our bodies are slightly different and we respond to things differently. So it's very personal. It's definitely not gender specific, in my opinion.
Okay, so I've got another kind of follow-up question to this now that we're talking about males and females and how the relationship there. I had another person that wanted to see if you had any advice for females that are feeling frustrated because they aren't losing weight as fast as their husbands. I get this one all the time, Bree, so help me out.
Okay, that's a great question. And I think that, body composition-wise, men and women are designed differently. So while I would say that when it comes to your goals, you can train any way that you prefer for the goal that you have at hand, but don't expect your body to react the same way as your husband or even your best friend, because the truth is, like I was saying in my last answer, is we're all a little bit different. All of us have a different body composition, and I think a lot of us as women tend to focus on our weight as the primary meter of, like, our success. And what I'll find a lot of my ladies do in the beginning is when they're taking progress pictures, which is a better way to sort of gauge your progress, they're just zeroing in on, like, their stomach or their butt. They're not actually looking at their full physique. So when I teach taking progress pictures, I encourage you to take a full-length body shot, a full-length progress picture, so that you can see your full body. Because, Body fat, if that's your focus, if that coming off your body, it comes off in the order that it went on systemically, which means all over. So just because you're targeting your abs or your butt doesn't mean the body fat's going to drop there instantly. Your body fat's going to come off in the order that it came on, and that's really governed by our DNA. And for women, a lot of us, the last places that it comes off is like our hip and belly area, and that's really nature's way of protecting us because of one of the primary functions of our amazing female body, which is childbirth. So, while it can be frustrating if you do have body fat to lose, it is important to be taking those full-length progress pictures because you'll be able to zero in on the fact that your body is actually responding to the work that you're doing, and it may be responding in areas that you're not giving enough attention to. And if you can actually see yourself full length and start to notice and celebrate the changes that you are making, and not all the progress initially is physical. Sometimes it's your energy is better. You'll feel stronger. Your clothes start to fit differently. And I think if your clothes are fitting differently, you will see those changes in the progress pictures because, body fat takes up a lot more space than muscle. It's just physically bigger. Fat. A pound of muscle and a pound of fat are both 1 pound, but the pound of muscle just is more dense, so it takes up less fat. So I'm sure Adam has explained this concept, but it is definitely the case that you can't expect that your body is going to change overnight, and obviously you don't expect that, but we all want to see progress fast when we start putting in the effort. And that's the thing about commitment and consistency is it's not a fast process. It's a commitment. It takes time. And so if you approach it with that in mind and you stop comparing yourself to other people and compare yourself more to yourself and your own journey, and you're accountable and take responsibility for the choices you're making, then you can really start to track your progress in a meaningful way. Men have more muscle on their body. They're made that way. They always have been. So it's easier a lot of the time for a man to put muscle on. A lot of women have this fallacy in their mind that like adding muscle to their body is going to bulk them up, but that's incorrect, right? So if you are doing resistance training and you are combining that with a healthy diet, and resistance training could be using weights, it could be using gravity. I do a ton of body weight workouts that use gravity as my resistance. You will be able to start to add lean muscle and burn off the body fat. And a man can do just the same thing. He just will probably, because he already has more lean muscle on his frame, you'll see his results faster than you'll see your own. But again, it's not about comparing. It's about comparing yourself to yourself from the last 7-day progress picture you took and your measurement. I think that's a good thing to touch on, Adam, is like what's the best way for us to kind of like measure our progress? What's your recommendation for people when you suggest that?
I like doing a lot of different things. That way we can always measure progress in some way, shape, or form. Because as you know, this number on the scale might stall out, or the number of push-ups you can do might slow down a little bit. So we always try to get a full spectrum of, like you mentioned, full body progress pictures. That's a staple with anybody that I'm giving any advice to. But I have people journal and just evaluate where they're at mentally and emotionally, how they're gaining confidence. I love measurements, body fat, physical tests, like, how many push-ups you can do in a minute, how long you can hold a plank for. I love a 30 burpee challenge test. I'm sure that you're a fan of burpees, aren't you, Bree?
I sure am. And I just developed a brand new burpee, actually. It's called a kickboxing burpee. It's a pretty good one.
I'll put a link to that one for sure.
Oh, I haven't shared it anywhere except for in my I teach a private class every week online for my Rock Your Life community, and I taught it in one of our recent classes. So you won't be able to find it on the blog, but I can describe it. You basically do a burpee, and when you come up, you do a front kick and a back kick, and you alternate which leg leads. So you guys can try that anytime. Super fun.
Nice. So how about you? What types of measurement or assessment are you a fan of when people are doing a transformation?
I totally agree with everything you said. I like to keep it really simple to start with. So I just recommend the progress pictures every 7 to 10 days and measurements around your thigh, your upper arm, your waist, and your hips. And just that way it gives you like a great like starting out point. And if you want to go deeper, I really recommend, if you have access to doing some blood work or doing any kind of test with your, if you have a naturopath or doctor, of course, I see actually two people. They're a team, a naturopath and a doctor. So the naturopath is very much like the preventative, works with my body, very integrative medicine, and then my MD, who also is an integrative doctor. So it's a really cool combo. But what I do is I will get my blood tests done and also like to check my hormone levels to see how my adrenals are, to see where I'm at as far as like my nutrition, how much, like where I'm at with my minerals, my vitamins. And for that, I would do like a full panel. So like, like a saliva swab. They can check your adrenals, urine, of course, fecal and blood. So if you have the opportunity to do one or any of those types of things, it is really cool to be able to really dial in your nutrition and also to kind of give you a meter of like where your energy levels are, to sort of see how you are doing. So you don't just give yourself some arbitrary training program or nutrition program that's not actually meeting your needs.
Yeah, I have talked about, I think I've mentioned it on the podcast. I know I've blogged about it, but about a year ago, my personal doctor recommended that I get my omega-3 levels checked and check the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. And it was super, super interesting. And I actually got an email back from the company because I had one of their highest scores. They actually tested me at what they called the caveman level of, because I follow more of a paleo diet. And they're like, what are you eating? What are you doing? What are you supplementing with? We want to know. So that was pretty cool to be like, if you're following the paleo diet and you're testing at caveman levels, I feel like something's going right. So that was pretty exciting to check out for sure.
That's awesome. And I love that you got your tests done to see where you were at.
Yep. Yeah. It's all about measurement and then, making progress. If we can make progress, I was talking to some clients this past weekend. I said, if you can make progress of going from an assisted pull-up to a full body weight pull-up, guess what else is going to happen? You're most likely going to be losing body fat, losing weight. Your self-esteem is going up. So it's kind of those non-scale victories that we all like to talk about, focusing on those and focusing on action steps that will build momentum in other ways like weight loss, body fat loss, and all that. So sometimes it takes a little bit of a pivot with a mental shift. So we're all about that for sure. Yeah,
that's the weight on the scale is really just one piece of data that doesn't tell you much at all about your body composition. And I think that's a really important topic just especially for all of my ladies out there. I know that it's easy to you weigh yourself daily and you somehow in your mind are giving yourself a value assessment based on your weight because you had this idea in your head that you at a certain weight is the perfect you. And that's just like really an outdated kind of concept that I would love to invite you to just like trash now and along with your scale, because your worth and your value have nothing to do with your weight on the scale. They have everything to do with the quality of your life, the way that you talk to yourself, your body composition, because your body composition can be very useful in having a good amount of muscular density, a lower amount of body fat. Your body will function at a more optimal and efficient level. You won't put as much stress on your joints. And it's really just about your quality of life overall, and the things that you're able to do. That is the way that I measure how well I feel.
Yeah. Preach on, Betty Rocker. That's exactly, I want to disabuse people of that mindset, like you said, of the scale is everything. And it's not for sure. Okay. Now let's start trying to dive in a little bit deeper. I know I want to be respectful of your time, but I wanted to know, this is actually a question that I came up with, that I just wanted to know, I know with my personal journey, kind of the key moments when, I lost 100 pounds. I started to make that mental shift of being the overweight person to being the person that's out there trying to help other people do the same thing, kind of lead by example. So what were the key moments or the moment in your life that helped transform you from the old, the former Bree that used to be into the superhero, the Betty Rocker? So what kind of transition went on with your life in that moment?
Yeah, transformation isn't a future event. It's always a present day activity, right? So you and I and everyone listening, we're all in a constant state of transformation. And the choices that you make are what create the you that you're going to be from moment to moment. So it's never too late. You never have, you've never done so much wrong that you can't make it right. And for me, I had so I'm 40. And when I look back, into my early 30s, I was a little bit of a mess. I had studied nutrition extensively, but wasn't really applying the principles to myself. I was on that fad diet kind of thing just because I was constantly caught up in this concept of I need to look a certain way to be loved. And that was a deep, flawed mindset that was a byproduct of the way I was raised, my past experiences, and it was kind of really screwing me up. And I never really felt like I measured up. I never really felt like I was good enough. And so I would abuse myself with bad foods, drinking, bad behavior, excessive drug use. And I was just at this point where I actually burned out my adrenals. I was totally overtraining, not eating, I would eat salads and then think I was being healthy by eating those low-fat lean cuisines, low-fat yogurt, just horrible choices. But a lot of us kind of get into that trap mentally and think that, it's so crazy because I knew more. I knew better, but I wasn't applying it to myself because I was so obsessed with how I looked. And this was the moment. So I burned out my adrenals so badly. I couldn't exercise. I couldn't recover from my exercises. I was tired all the time, but I couldn't sleep. I had no libido. I was just classically overtrained and tired but wired is the way that Sean Stevenson, the sleep expert, would say it, where your cortisol is totally out of whack. And cortisol is a great hormone for specific things, but when you have too much of it running through your system all the time, you're really in for some trouble. So I really had to take a long, hard look at what I was doing to myself. And I had to take a step back and be really honest about why I was doing it. And I realized that I didn't want to be shredded to look like somebody else's idea of a bikini model anymore. I really just kind of started to understand that the way that my body looked and felt was a byproduct of how I treated myself, which is hearkening back to what we discussed a little bit earlier. I just started to love my body, love my vessel. This is when I started to see my body as this vessel of awesomeness. I started to understand that my choices were impacting how I felt and consequently how I looked. And I was making crappy choices. And even more than that, it was this constant flow, this steady stream of negative self-talk where I was constantly beating myself up for not being enough. And I realized that was not really coming from me. That was coming from external voices that I had internalized from my past. And I sought out a mentor to work with and guide me. And he gave me this great activity to do where I had to wear a rubber band around my wrist. And every time I thought something negative to myself, which in the beginning was multiple times a day, I would have to snap it on my wrist, which was really cool because it forced me to be aware that I was doing that. Remember when you were talking about mindful eating? Bringing your own mind's awareness to the why or to the fact that you are doing something is always the first step to interrupt the pattern of doing something mindlessly. And I would snap that thing, and then my phase 2 of that was I had to tell myself something positive. And at first that was hard, and I would miss a lot of thoughts, and I would just get on the automatic negative thought train, which you could use that as an acronym, which is ANT, the automatic negative thoughts. Dr. Daniel Amen from the Amen Clinic. He's the brain specialist. He calls them that. And you want to squash your ants. And this was my technique to do so. So I would think a positive thought. And what happens is it's just like doing bicep curls. The more you repeat this, the more you strengthen that muscle. And over time, I created a new template for how I would think. And as I started to build in the healthier eating and I started to actually go deeper in my studies about nutrition on my own, I read everything I could get my hands on, and I started to write the Betty Rocker blog. And I started to share the healthy eating principles and the mindsets that were working for me and my workouts. And what was absolutely crazy, I don't know if I've shared this story with you, Adam, but about a year into me writing that blog, Whole Foods Market called me up and they were like, hey, Betty Rocker, we have a store employee who we are featuring as our healthy team member of the month, and her name is Barb. And Barb lost 50 pounds over the past year. And when we asked her what she attributes her great success to, she said, I read Betty Rocker's blog all the time.
That's awesome.
And we were wondering if you'd come in and teach some cooking classes. And this is a Whole Foods that I shopped at. And I would always talk to the employees there because they were awesome. And they also really loved the food. And this woman would always ask me, you're so tiny, but you have so much food in your cart. What are you doing? Where do you put it all? Because she was on that mentality of eating less is going to make me skinny, but she could never lose the weight because she wasn't actually giving her body the nutrients it needed to function in an optimal way. And that is really the secret. You give your body the building blocks that it needs, and it will serve you. Think of your factory workers. Think of yourselves and your factory workers, and they need to be fed properly. You need to rest them properly. And, that was kind of the mentality that I was beginning to embrace. And so I started teaching cooking classes at Whole Foods, which I did for a year or so. I wrote my first book, The Body Fuel System, which really explains science and how to eat, and really in a fun way where each of the nutrients are Avengers characters. So
That's awesome. Awesome.
Protein is Captain America. And, when you put them all together in your body, they are the Avengers team. They are a superhero. You become a superhero. That was pretty much that was kind of the story of how I transformed into the Betty Rocker.
That's awesome. I love it, Bree. I love that story. Now, I know that there are a lot of people listening in that are in kind of a similar place of where you were as you began your journey, kind of confused about things, willing to put in the work, willing to try diets, but just misinformed and not really feeling like they know exactly what they should be doing, which we both know can lead to a lot of just despair. And you start to feel hopeless, and those thoughts of maybe I'm just like this, maybe I'm not supposed to be healthy. I hear people say that all the time, and it just makes me sad. So,
right. Or maybe it's my genetics. Maybe it's my DNA. I just don't have that. That's just not my genetics. I'm not healthy. Yeah.
And that just bums us out. And so, if there's somebody out there listening and they're in that kind of deep life rut situation, what, one or two things would you like to just tell them or give them to work on to help them get, find their way out of that?
Yeah, I think that having, small hinges swing big doors. So look at your daily eating and see where you can add things. You don't have to eliminate things. Look where you can add things. Like if you're drinking soda daily, try replacing a couple sodas with water, for example. Just hydrate your body. If you're finding that you're snacking a lot or eating a lot of sweets, maybe try replacing some of the candy with fruit. Think about your protein intake throughout the day. Make sure that you're including a protein source with your major meals, and also some kind of protein in the food that's in your snack if you're eating a snack. You want to also just be mindful of eating greens. Green foods are amazing for you. So just see where you're getting them. Just start to notice. Just notice. Maybe start a little food journal where you just write down what you ate throughout the day and see if you can't label your foods. Protein, carb, fat, greens. I think that's what this one was. And maybe track your water intake. Just that mindful awareness is such a great place to start. But I think also movement is such an important piece when it comes to getting started. And so I created a free 15-minute a day, 30-day challenge that you can use as an awesome boost to get yourself on track. And you can do a 15-minute workout from anywhere, no equipment required. If you happen to be traveling this month or just really busy, you could do this 15 minutes when first thing you wake up, or even before you go to bed at night. You can do it when your kids are around. Let them do it too. It's just a video that you get every day for 30 days, and it works a different part of your body every day. Very accessible. And I'm sure Adam will put a link in the podcast notes for this, but it's just makefatcrychallenge.com. You want to sign up for that. And, just it's these small things. It doesn't have to be this massive workout program where you're doing 30 to 40 minutes to an hour of workout a day. That's not how you're going to start out and see results. You want to start with what you can do, what you can fit in. And if you're already doing a workout program and you're just sort of not inspired or you've hit a plateau, add in the 30-day challenge because it's awesome. And the before and after pictures I see from people going through that challenge, it's amazing. Just having that kind of little boost in your day, so awesome. It'll get you thinking about eating. It'll get you thinking about your mindset, and it'll get you moving in your body. So that would be my sort of long answer.
All right. So I've had a ton of people in my Defeat the Cheat challenge group where we'll do like a weekly workout challenge. And I have so many people that brag and really are very complimentary about the Make Fat Cry challenge. So I know it's good. I know people are loving it. And just from hearing your description of your story and meeting you in person and knowing, how personable you are. And I feel like that's, people relate to you, and that's why you are who you are and why the legend of Betty Rocker just keeps building and building, because people say, that person is a lot like me. And if she can do it, I can do it too. So I just kind of want to acknowledge you for just being that person. I know that in health and fitness, there can be a lot of ego and a lot of this is all about me. And I feel like you aren't like that. You are somebody that's about the people, and it's about helping the people. And so I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being here and being willing to answer questions that both myself and my podcast listeners had. And we only got through about half of them. So you know what that means? We're going to have to do a round 2 at some point in the future, Bree. So
anytime, Adam. It's a pleasure talking to you and your amazing audience. And I feel like, we're all in this together. And when you think about why you want to be healthy and fit, if you can think about yourself as a role model to other people and how they look up to you, your choices really matter. And I think that that's something that connects us all. So thanks again for the opportunity to talk to you.
All right, guys. I think that's a great place to end this one. Like I said, we'll hit Bree up for a round 2. But for now, I want you guys to get out there. Like I say, every episode, get out there and own it. Every meal, every workout, every day. I'll see you on the next episode. Hey, before you guys head out, I just want to remind you really quickly to come and check out my free Facebook support group, the Defeat the Cheat group. You can head on over to www.defeatthecheat.com. That will redirect you directly to the place where you can join our free Facebook support group. It is awesome. These people are on fire. If you guys struggle with being consistent with your nutrition and your fitness, and you need a little bit of support, a little bit of mojo, a little bit of help, we've got it for you. We've got your back. All nutrition plans, all workout systems are welcome. There's no judgment there. It's no, our program is better than your program. It is about following the program and supporting you on your own transformation journey. I'm telling you, it's awesome. We're doing 14-day challenges. We're sharing recipes, motivational quotes, tips. Every day there's something on there that's going to inspire you. I guarantee it. So come on over, check it out, www.defeatthecheat.com. We'll see you inside the group.